have you ever visited a city overseas? Have you ever stood on a busy street corner in Melbourne and the lights go tick, 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 and everyone's just all moving in different directions? There is coming a day when every single city in the world will be changed. There'll only ever be one city. There will be no ocean that separates countries. See, the creation story, it started in a garden. But the climax of God's story is a city. It's a garden city. And it's where the leaves of the tree of life bring healing to the nations. And in the last pages of our Bible, God's city heals humanity. John calls it the New Jerusalem. And in Revelation 21, in verse 2, he says that this New Jerusalem is coming down out of heaven from God. Why is that little detail important, coming down? Because we're not going up. Heaven is coming down to earth. And God's city, it's going to bring the world together in this perfect harmony. There will be no relational conflict between individuals, within families, between nations. Think of a city 40 times bigger than the whole of England. Not just flat. It's a cube reaching up nearly 2,500 kilometres straight up. So imagine from Melbourne to Townsville in one direction and then go straight up and make a cube. Outer space is only 100 k's above us. And whether the picture of that in Revelation is literal or whether it's just figurative to expand our concept of the grandeur of what God is going to establish on this new earth with a new heaven and this Jerusalem coming, it's hard to comprehend. It's going to be spectacular, but there's one detail that's really easy to overlook, and it's a detail that involves you. You're in this picture. And the detail comes after verse 23 in Revelation 21. In chapter 21, verse 23, John says this: "The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb, which is Jesus, is its lamp." And here's the detail that surprised me when I was looking into this. We contribute to the glory and the honour of the city, not just God. In verse 24, John writes, "And the kings of the earth will bring their splendour to it." But he doesn't stop there. In verse 26, he says this: "The glory and honour of the nations will be brought into it." That's us. Wayne, that's you. We're included. The word, the Greek word is the word ethnos. It's It's Gentiles, it's non-Jewish people are going to bring glory and honour to the New Jerusalem. And John paints this picture a little earlier in Revelation chapter 7 when he says, a great multitude that no one could count from every nation, tribe, people, language, standing before the throne in front of the Lamb. Our glory, the glory that we bring to God's city, is referring to our value, what we're worth. It's a value that God places upon our one life. Our honour, because there's two words used, our honour is also highlighting our value, but it's sort of different. On the 7th of May, just 6 weeks ago, a 2-year-old racing filly, a horse. Did you know this, Rachel? Sold in Sydney for $5.6 million. That horse's value was determined by the price they paid for her. It's the same for us. Our honour that we bring to God's city is the Greek word, and it's referring to the money paid. Someone paid a price for you to live free from anything that could destroy you. Jesus paid that price. And we're precious because he was willing to do what it takes to redeem us. Jesus spoke about this New Jerusalem in John 14 when he's talking to his team. And he told them, in my Father's house are many dwelling places. When you hear the word Father's house, don't think of a home. Don't think of a building. Don't think of a structure. It's a word that means household. It's a family. It's where God's authority and rulership take place. It's a community where inheritance and reward and people all come together. It's a city of extravagant beauty. On Monday, I was travelling back from Balranald. 10.5 hours. And I spent 2.5 hours of that trip just going from one side of Melbourne to the other. They're mad. They have things called car accidents and everyone stops forever. And then you creep forward a little bit and you stop forever, and you just do that forever until you eventually get across Melbourne. And people, they live in that world. It's an ugly world. Big concrete things either side of the freeway to stop noise, spoiling people's lives. An ugly, ugly place. New Jerusalem, no cars. No traffic jams, no public transport. It's not needed. Jesus showed us that in his newly resurrected body, which is a prototype for what we get, he could just appear in a room that was locked. That's pretty tricky. It could be embarrassing. You'd have to knock first sometimes, wouldn't you? But he just appeared. And then two of the disciples, not part of the 12, but obviously following Jesus and talking after his death and this rumoured resurrection, they're talking and they're walking, and there's a verse in Luke, and it's in chapter 24, verse 15, and it says, Luke says this, Jesus himself suddenly came up and began walking with them. He wasn't puffed. He just, wait, hang on, I'm trying to catch up to you. He just appeared. How did he know what they were talking about? How did he just turn up walking beside them, knowing their conversation, and get into the conversation and explain from the Old Testament himself? And they invite him for a meal that evening, and when they sit down in the house together and he starts to break the bread to share it, they go, oh, it's Jesus. And they recognise him, and it says, then their eyes were opened and they recognised him, and he disappeared from sight. That's a pretty tricky human body. And the word disappeared, it's a Greek word describing going from one substance to another. It's supernatural. It's the same word that describes creation, where the invisible becomes visible. This is the new body that we get to play with. Could be fun. Special features we don't even know yet what we're going to have. See, physical distance will no longer cause relational pain. The grief that Coral's feeling with the loss of Mandy and Aaron and the boys can't happen in the New Jerusalem. Distance cannot separate us. We were never designed to be separated relationally for any reason. None. You were never designed to be rejected by someone you love. Death, the pain, the grief, never designed to be separated. And in John 14, Jesus is seeking to comfort his disciples because he's about to go to the cross, die, resurrected, and then out of here. So he says to them, verse 1 of chapter 14, do not let your hearts be troubled. Well, thank you very much. So what's the solution? Martin was speaking about it a few minutes ago. Trust in God. Trust also in me. That's what Jesus said. When you can't understand what's going on, when it doesn't make sense, that was Jesus' solution to them. It is for us. And trusting is not blind loyalty. It's based on God's promises. And in the next breath, Jesus lays out one of those promises. It's the verse that I was just referring to a moment ago. In my Father's house are many rooms. Some translations say many dwelling places, many mansions. It's a Greek word, and it's only used twice in the whole of the New Testament, and it's used twice in this conversation that Jesus is having. And each time he uses it, it's a signpost to life beyond the grave. And it's designed to bring comfort and to bring hope. But here's the thing. the dwelling place that Jesus is talking about, it's permanent. It's not temporary. And Jesus uses it twice in this conversation, once about the future. The second time he uses it, it's about a present reality or part of a present reality. And in verse 23 of John 14, he says this: if a man or woman, a young person, loves me, they'll keep my word, that my Father will love them, and he will come to them and make our home, our dwelling place, our mansion with them. Why does Jesus say that the Father and the Son will come to dwell with us and not mention the Holy Spirit? Because the Holy Spirit's already here. We already have that deposit. See, God's grand plan has always been to come and dwell with us, to bring heaven and earth together. That night, as Jesus tried to comfort his team because there was going to be grief from separation coming, he gives this promise referring to God's household. He says, I'm going there to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you may be where I am. Where will that ultimately be? The New Jerusalem. Brought down out of heaven, prepared in advance for this freshly baked, newly renovated earth that is coming. As I said a little earlier, I was travelling back from a trip to Balranald on Monday. Went to Balranald with Brad Smith, his 11-year-old daughter Amy, and my 11-year-old granddaughter Brooklyn. It was a profound, incredible time away. There was a moment in our trip where it was just Brooklyn and I. We're just sitting in the ute, and she says to me, Granddad, what will happen to me when I die? I think for the first time in my life, I actually felt prepared to answer that question. I don't know if I could have answered it a year ago. And we had this amazing conversation. And I told her how she will get to sit with her great-grandparents, to meet her great-grandparents and hear their stories. And then I blew her little imagination wide open. I said, you're going to get to have a little interview with Moses. Anyone you want to pick, any hero of the Bible, you'll get to talk to them, meet them. Last Sunday evening, I don't know what you were doing, but I was with my granddaughter on a remote sheep station. As far as the eye could see was flat mallee scrub, not another human being for a long, long way. And she achieved a personal goal. And I wanted to reward her. So I made her a promise. And I said, I'm going to spend $1,000 to do something that you'll remember this moment forever. And her mouth dropped and her eyes sparkled. I shocked her. And then I said to her, the reason I'm doing this, I said, because when you're 30 or 40 years of age, this will be just a distant, fuzzy memory. You'll remember little bits. And I will be long gone. And I want you to remember me and this moment that we shared. And for the first time in her life, I saw adult understanding of the moment. And she just welled up with emotion. I've never seen this in her before. And she understood what I was saying. The next morning, it's time to come back to Bairnsdale. Brad and the girls left early, which was the smart thing to do. I got left with the final pack up at camp. 3 hours it took me. And as they drove off at 7:15 in the morning, I felt so alone. I felt like the party was over and I was left to do the dishes. I hate doing dishes. And so I left, feeling alone, but comforted that on my trip back I could get on my phone and talk. But my phone had a heart attack and died. And I had to travel all the way back by myself. And I was heading back a different way, and I went through a little town called Witchyproof. 600 people live in Witchy today. But when I was a child, between the ages of 3 and 8, that was home. There was 1,000 people in the great metropolis of Witchyproof back then. And I've been through Witchy a couple of times since, but I've never visited the home where I was as a child. I knew I would find it. I could imagine, I could see in my mind where the house, the church that Dad built was and all this stuff. And I pulled up outside of where the house was. It's no longer there. A cheap, rubbishy thing had been built in its place. Iron fences around it. But the church, the physical church that Dad built was brand new back then. And I pulled up in front of the church. I got out of my ute, walked around the building. I was not prepared for what I found. Because in amongst all the bricks, the front of the building, was a big slab of dark granite rock. And chiselled into this rock were these words: "The church is built upon one foundation. Jesus, her Lord." And the next line was what undid me. Minister, Reverend D.A. Rayment. These words were crafted by my dad. He thought about them. He lived them. This is the theology he lived his life by. These were precious words that were chiselled in stone. And I just fell to my knees sobbing. And I can remember taking my tears and wiping the dust off the granite and saying, "Hello, Dad. Hello, Dad." Whenever I've missed mum and dad in the past, I'll just say, miss your mum, miss your dad. But I was meeting my dad in a way that he did not foresee. I deliberately put something in place for my granddaughter. Dad was just living his life, serving God, marrying you two 49 years ago in 3 days. Wherever he went, just serving God. But because he did that faithfully, he left something in stone. When the Israelites moved into the promised land, God said, grab 12 stones and make a monument so that your kids, when they ask about what took place, you will have an answer. When I got back in my ute, travelled back to Bairnsdale, I was overwhelmed by a sense of hope and joy in the resurrection of the dead. When we get our new improved bodies with some little whiz-bang features built in, the resurrection of the dead is the only thing that makes sense of this life. The only thing. It's the only answer to any question you have about life. All religions offer some form of utopia when we die. Christianity is dramatically different. Resurrection of the dead is different. A new earth is different. Heaven and earth coming together is different. God dwelling with us is different. Those are not make-believe fairy tales. They're God's promises. It's how Jesus comforted his disciples. The resurrection of the dead is how the early church comforted each other when someone they loved died, who loved Jesus. That's the qualifier. When I saw my dad's name chiselled in stone, I was impacted profoundly by the hope of the resurrection. When I promised my granddaughter Brooklyn that I would do something that would forever remind her of our relationship together, I was investing in a hope that she would carry. That one day, because she trusts and believes in God, she and I will be reunited. See, our future for all of us hangs on the reality of Jesus coming back. And I think we make a mistake when we focus too much on when Jesus will come back and we don't value what he will achieve when that happens. What do you do with all this stuff? I would encourage you this week, have a conversation with someone about life beyond the grave. You never know where it will go. Press in relationally to someone. Don't isolate. So easy to isolate. Invest in the next generation deliberately. God will give you creative ways to do that. And just remember, you contribute to the glory of the New Jerusalem just by the way you live your life today. And your value is not determined by you or someone on Facebook. God has set your value. I have been personally changed through this series on life beyond the grave. I was changed when I saw my dad's name chiselled in stone and his words speaking to me. God's truth, God's way of doing life. That's my hope for us, for you. That when we get a glimpse of life beyond the grave, it would change how we live life now. It would motivate us, God's reward system. We would see it through a lens that changes the decisions we make, the values we carry. Next week is the last in this series. There's a lot of stuff we haven't covered. There's a lot of things I don't have a clue about. But I think the words of Jesus are a fitting way to finish this message and what Martin was speaking about this morning in worship. It's these. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. We don't have to know everything. We just put our trust in him.